Good evening. I'd like to call the regular meeting of the Plan and Design Commission to order on this day, May 6, 2025. Please call the roll.
Commissioner Incheck.
Here.
Commissioner Fettner.
Here.
Commissioner Nanis.
Here.
Commissioner Henry.
Here.
Commissioner Mantis.
Here.
Vice Chair Kirsch.
Present.
Chair Moore.
Here.
We have a quorum, Madam Chairman. I do recognize Corporation Counsel Marcus Martinez is here with us this evening.
Wonderful. All right. First item on our agenda is to approve the minutes from the last meeting, which was April 15th. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Okay, and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Abstain.
And we have 3 abstentions. So 4 ayes and 3 abstentions. Okay, thank you. First item on our agenda of scheduled business is, this is not a new item. So it's our reopening our public hearing. Is this a new public hearing or reopening it?
This is a continued one.
Continued, yeah. So it's public hearing PUD-2025-00033 for a special use permit in the nature of preliminary and final plan development with an amendment to the development agreement, final plat of re-subdivision, design review, and variations and modifications from city code as appropriate for proposed townhomes and condominiums for phase 2 and other improvements at the corner of Laurel Avenue and McGovern Street, including 844 to 768 Laurel Avenue and 1682 to 1652 McGovern Street. And our understanding is that the applicant has requested a continuance to June 3rd, 2025, to our Plan and Design Commission regular meeting that night.
Chair, that is correct. The applicant has requested a continuance to that date, Tuesday, June 3rd, the regular Plan and Design Commission meeting here at the same place and same time.
All right, do we need
Different date, though,
to
Tuesday,
vote on that?
I would move we continue this item until our next meeting on June 3rd.
Motion by Vice Chair Kurtz
Second.
and seconded by Commissioner Henry and Commissioner Mantis. All in favor? Oh,
Aye.
aye. Any nays? No, all right, that item is
Ayes
complete.
have it. So the notice here is actual, meaning that this public hearing will be continued to June 3rd, 7 p.m. in City Hall, this room. There'll be no additional notice of that
Okay.
continuation. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Right, that's the one for the Laurel Park development.
Yes.
Laurel Park Development.
Okay, the next item is B, a preliminary and final plat of re-subdivision with variations at 711 Lincoln Avenue West and 1349 to 1357 Oakwood Avenue, also known as the former Lincoln School site. Carl, do you have a presentation for us?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I'd also like to recognize Student Representative Alex Mendoza is in the audience.
Great.
Thank you, Carl.
Okay, my name is Carl Burhop. I'm a senior planner with the City of Highland Park in the Community Development Department in the Planning Division. There's an application for a plat of re-subdivision with variations. It's a preliminary and final plat concurrent for this property. That's an aerial image of the site. It's the former Lincoln School. So what is the commission's role here? The commission should consider the plat and variations. That is what the commission is considering to make a recommendation to the city council. The city council is the decision maker. If appropriate, the commission can adopt the findings of fact in the packet that recommend approval. If that's the case, there are specific staff recommended conditions of approval. Also want to point out there were public comments in the packet for this item. Okay, the proposal. So the proposal is 9 lots, 9 proposed lots for a total of 9 single-family homes. The applicant also proposes sidewalks to be provided around the periphery of the development. That was included on the civil drawings in the packet. I'll get briefly into the zoning, but I'll just state the lots that are proposed are compliant with the R6 zoning district. This property is in the R6 zoning district. The applicant also is proposing easement abrogation and then with new easements. And so the applicant wants to have this easement abrogated and then proposes new public utility easements, though my understanding is that the final design may more likely be a T, as they are still working with the Public Works Department on that for one that comes across like this. And of course, I'd have the applicant speak more about that. The one thing I do want to say real quick, because I did get some public comments on this. When this was platted in 1901, that's the previous plat for this property is 1901. It was platted for 5 properties. That doesn't mean it's zoned for 5 properties, and I'll get into density in a little bit, because obviously, well, actually, there was no zoning code in 1901. I can tell you when the first zoning code came to be, it was in 1922. That's when the city first had a zoning code. And even though it was platted as 5 lots back in 1901, functionally, it was used as one zoning lot by the previous user, the school district. Okay, this is just a summary review. This was in the packet. The main thing that should just draw your eyes are the colors on the right. Red means there was an issue, green means good, and then that tan brown means additional comments. So just the 2 reds, those are the variations that are requested, and I'll go through that. And then the 2 browns, those are comments by Public Works, and I'll go through that. Okay, so the variations. So the applicant is requesting 3 variations to the subdivision code. And let me be very clear, this is a subdivision request per chapter 151 subdivision code of the city's code. This is not a zoning consideration, nor is this a design review consideration. So the proposed lot 6 requires 3 variations. So it's a 5-sided lot, which is not allowed for the section that's cited. Lot 6 is a through lot by definition, which is prohibited by the section cited. Then lots 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 have intersecting lot line angles that are not 90 degrees for that section that's cited there. And so I just cited the variation exception section of the subdivision code, which I'll just read briefly. Variations from these regulations, referring to the subdivision code, shall not be granted as a right. However, the Plan Commission may recommend and the City Council may grant variations from the regulations contained in the subdivision code in specific cases which do not affect the general plan or the spirit of the subdivision code. Such recommendations shall be communicated to the City Council in writing. So then the only other thing I'll add from this, from a staff perspective, we just point out that if you look at the original plat, the original lots, how they were subdivided in 1901, these conditions are pre-existing. So there were at least 1, if not 2, I don't recall, but it was in the packet actually. The lots that, at least 1 or 2 of the lots that composed this beforehand were already 5-sided, so that's a pre-existing condition. And the zoning lot as it is a 5-sided lot. The school functioned as a zoning lot, it was a through lot. And then finally, there were also intersecting lot line angles from the 1901 plat that did not meet at 90 degrees. So the staff points that out, as some of those are pre-existing conditions going back to 1901. Code review density. So this is the block on the right. And so what I did is I went to the county assessor's website for each of those properties within that block. Mulberry Place on the north, Lincoln on the south, Oakwood on the left, and then Glencoe on the right. And so I went through all that and I took the areas from all those properties and I added them all up. And I noticed that a few of those properties actually had multiple family units on that. And I only want to compare apples to apples. So I just compared all the properties, which is most of them, that have single family homes. And I took the average, how many square feet is there per home on this block? And the answer to that is, I guess it's my second bullet point, is the 10,888 square feet. And so what the applicant is proposing is their average lot area is 13,448 square feet. So their lots are slightly more than what the average would be for the block if you just compare the single family homes. This is compliant with the R6 minimum as well. This is zoned R6. The minimum lot area for the R6 is 7,260 square feet. And the minimum lot width for the R6 is 50 feet. And all their lots are, well, the lowest is the 54.57. That's actually on the south side. And there was also a note in the staff report about the established average property width for the block, which would, of course, that only apply on the west and the east, that wouldn't apply on the south. The staff did review that, looked at their numbers again, I looked at all the widths, and it's not triggered on the west or the east. Even if they were, it would be met because their lots on the west and the east are both 65 feet minimum. Just by way of comparison, if this development was developed to actually match the block density, then they would propose 11 single-family homes. That would actually match the 10,888 square feet with a fraction, obviously. So any questions on density? Okay, code review, traffic, and then grading and drainage. Former use of the site was a school. According to the Plata survey for the site, in the aerial image, 41 off-street parking spaces. Traffic was generated from that facility for staff and faculty trips, visitor trips, and drop-off and pickup trips. There is no requirement in the subdivision code for traffic impact study. Section 150.505, which is a zoning code citation, lists the plan development thresholds for a traffic impact study. Oop, I have a typo there, my apologies. But for 9 single-family homes on a 2.77 acre site, that does not trigger the threshold, and therefore there was no requirement for the applicant to submit a traffic impact study. However, staff did review and does have conditions related to access management restrictions, and I'll get into those. I think that's the next slide. My final comment is on grading and drainage, and standard comment, new development must meet current codes. So if this is approved, if the city council approves, and if this proceeds, they will have to get permits for their improvements. And that includes review to current day grading and drainage code requirements. And then I'll just point out, I did ask the applicant, even though this was not a requirement that they submit this at this time, I think the commission will really want to know what's happening, the public will want to know what's really happening with site impervious. And the applicant states that they're decreasing it. They state it's approximately 90,600 square feet of impervious surface right now, and that it will decrease to approximately 31,240 square feet. In my report, I did put a caveat on that number, which gets back to their footprints in their civil plans, because the commission is not considering or approving or recommending on those footprint plans. And those footprint plans may ultimately change as long as they, of course, comply with all applicable code requirements, including bulk requirements. I actually did not include a bulk requirement slide in here, but I did discuss it in my report where I laid out what the applicant can be expected to comply for in terms of setbacks and other bulk requirements. Inclusionary zoning is triggered since this is a single family, a detached single family development. I think the cutoff is 19 or less. The applicant can, just by code, this is by code, make a cash payment in lieu of that amount, $333,000 and $333,720 to the Housing Trust Fund. And then this is my last slide, and this was in the report. So if it's not large enough font on the screen, again, this was in the report. So the top one, just standards A through E in the report. Those are standard conditions for all the plats, so I didn't put them on here. But F, G, and H are conditions, and I'll just walk through them really quick. So condition F is that the applicant must provide a note on the civil drawings related to the footprint plan. Just to be 100% clear that this is not approval for those footprint plans, and that they still must comply with bulk requirements, et cetera, as appropriate. Letter G there, so that's where I said staff did look at the proposal and does recommend driveway access restrictions based on the intersections there. And so lots 2 and 8, which I believe are on the east and the west, so these two lots 2 and 8, so that driveway access should be restricted to the north 18 feet, which means that moves away driveways the furthest away from the intersection. And then on lot 7, the eastern 18 feet, again, moving it away from the intersection, then restricting lot 6 for no access on what makes it a through lot, this 18.01 foot property line segment along Oakwood Avenue. I'm not aware of any objections by the applicant's team on these conditions. And then finally, the last one, the applicant should remove the existing mid-block crossing. I'm not aware of any objections from the applicant. And the last one gets to what I already talked about the utilities. The applicant is working with Public Works on just aligning where exactly the easements will go for infrastructure. And that's something that has to be sorted out in the staff report. A subdividers agreement is needed. That's for the council. It says in the subdivision code that the council needs to have that and review that before it's approved. And that will get to the city the sidewalks and any type of infrastructure that goes on the cities, infrastructure that the city takes over, like pipes and what have you, and the easements. And that is my presentation. I can take questions if there's any.
Lot 6, it's a through lot because it has that little odd extra side, is that correct?
That's right. By definition, correct, because it's not a corner lot, but yet it has frontage on two sides, so it's a through lot. That's right.
But it's really functionally no different than any of the others along Lincoln. I guess my question is, the petitioner says in somewhere in their materials that there were no through lots. So, I mean, did you,
Perhaps that was
They're
identified
just
by
mis-
staff after the fact.
okay.
That's our determination.
Now, I'm not aware of the petitioner objecting to that determination, but I think that.
Because we missed it. Okay, thank you.
Carl, when looking at the request for variations, I mean, our standard is really that it doesn't affect the general plan or spirit of the subdivision code, right? There's no real standards to be reviewing.
It is exactly that. Whatever is in the commission's broad interpretation, determination as to what that means. That's correct.
Okay, thanks.
That's verbatim from code, from section 151.009.
And again, even though the word variation is used, this is not a zoning board of appeals variation, nor is it a modification through a plan development, which do have different standards.
Well,
This
right.
is a subdivision variation.
Right, this is a different type of, well, I was gonna use the word scrutiny, but it's a different standard, correct?
Commissioner Mantis has a question.
So I understand from the third bullet point for the variations that our code calls for 90-degree intersections. What's the rationale for that from a code standpoint?
For 90 degrees? Well, I suppose it just makes the lots more organized and cleaner, I would imagine.
Regularized.
Yeah, I mean, it's actually, so I quoted that as well, the part that's in quotation marks. The actual requirement is, as nearly as practicable, intersecting lot lines shall form right angles with each other. So the way it actually reads, it's actually, anyway, no, I see Commissioner Henry knocking.
I mean, a lot of that has to do with, trying to avoid irregular shaped lots. Irregularity is undesirable. In my experience of working in other jurisdictions, I mean, there's some lots where someone tried to create a lot like this, and then there's this long, like 5-foot, just to get the area requirements, right? Which, who's taking care of that 5-foot strip behind 5 other houses? These are undesirable types of things. So the standards in our code are set up so that you avoid things like that.
Thank you.
Commissioner Henry.
Carl, I think earlier in your presentation, you indicated that it went down to like 30,000 square feet of impervious, or went up, yeah.
Was reduced.
Reduced.
The school and the paved
Yeah, they had a lot of,
area, there's way
yeah,
more.
I'm only too familiar with Lincoln School, or was. Does that create any kind of issue, or actually that should be good for this development, shouldn't it? From a water standpoint?
Yeah, I mean,
Generally speaking, impervious area then needs to be controlled,
Yeah.
right? So pervious area allows for absorption.
Right.
Slows the water down before it collects in storm sewers and other places, so it's desirable, yes. Our city public works monitors impervious surface and likes to see less impervious surface than more. As a matter of fact, we have a trigger for certain stormwater management techniques to need to be employed based on impervious area increases. This is a decrease, so that's
Significant
generally-
decrease.
It's generally a good thing, yeah. Of course, drainage and grading will be reviewed at building permit time to make sure that there aren't slopes that are causing problems to any adjacent or abutting lands.
Any more questions from the commission? I have a question. Along Lincoln right now, there's a cutout for parking. Is that gonna stay there? Is that gonna go away? Is there a look as to what parking will be allowed on the street? Because I know people use that parking area for baseball games at the park across the street?
So the cutout parking on the north side
Yes.
of that street will be removed and I guess what's the word, restored to
Filled in.
parkway
Yeah.
yeah, and that's also depicted on their civil plans as well. That's why it wasn't a comment from our Public Works Department, because the applicant's civil plans addressed that in a manner that Public Works would have asked for required, and Public Works also asked that the mid-block connection be removed.
Yes.
We've also consulted with the Park District. They had no objections to that.
Okay, yeah.
As well as I do point out that it's similar to the way other homes along that park are dealt with as well. So they're going to basically restore a parkway where there's parking there.
Okay, but I assume there'll be some amount of parking allowed along that street, probably whatever else is in the neighborhood.
Understanding that the removal of the mid-block crossing might enable more parking on the other side, on the park.
On the north side, yes.
Yeah.
Because I think you're still gonna get people parking there.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay,
Actually, I have one more question.
oh, yes,
for staff.
please go ahead.
Has our engineering department reviewed this on a preliminary basis? I know there's some concerns about ingress and egress of the development. So anybody in engineering looked at this yet?
That's correct. Our staff downstairs, Emmanuel Gomez, the city engineer, and other staff in the engineering division did review it and provide comments. The most updated of which I had were copied and pasted into the staff report. And again, their comments were, there were four, the first being, I don't remember the order, but the access management for the driveways, which we discussed. That being a restriction, of which I'm not aware the applicant is objecting. Two, the Public Works Department memo indicated no traffic impact study was required. Planning Division concurs with that based on the thresholds for planned development. And then the other two, there was one about removing the mid-block connection. And then just the issue of easements, and it's not that I would say Public Works opposes or objects or concerns, they're just fine-tuning where or how the public utility easements will be finalized on the property. And that's normally finalized with the subdividers agreement as well.
Okay, great. So they gave it a good preliminary review, and their assessment was no traffic study was needed.
Yeah, and I would say more than preliminary, I'd say both preliminary and final.
Okay.
Yes.
Oh, good. Okay.
Anybody else from the commission? Okay. Would the applicant like to speak?
If you need to point at anything, you gotta try to use this, it doesn't have much slack. But you can, because it's a giant, okay. Anyway.
I'll try to avoid the need to point.
Well, if you need to.
Hide this guy. Well, thank you, Carl. Well, thank you very much, Carl, for the thorough presentation, and thank you to the commissioners for the thorough discussion. We will try to keep our contents or our comments to a minimum. Also, thank you, Chair Moore and members of the commission for hearing our matter today. My name is Braden Lord. I'm an attorney with the law firm of Taft, Stettinius, and Hollister, LLP, located at 111 East Wacker Drive. And our firm represents the applicant in this matter, HP Lincoln, LLC. I am joined this evening by two members of the HP Lincoln project team, Brad Gold, who is the manager of HP Lincoln LLC, and Don Fielding, who is the president of Green Guard Inc., the project engineer. As Carl explained, the applicant is seeking your favorable recommendation of a plat of re-subdivision with variations for the subject property located at 711 Lincoln Avenue West and 1349 to 57 Oakwood Avenue. Just to confirm the location and the zoning of the property here, the property consists of this 5-sided, irregularly shaped site. It's bound by single-family residential to the north and public rights of way on the other 4 sides. The property contains approximately 120,769 square feet of site area, which is currently vacant and unimproved following the demolition and abatement of certain conditions at the former Lincoln Elementary School by the applicant. The property is owned as part of the R6 medium density single family residential district. As Carl mentioned, the property is currently legally subdivided into 5 lots of record, but was functionally used as a single zoning lot for the elementary school. The applicant proposes to re-subdivide the site into 9 lots of record to facilitate the development of 9 single-family homes. We want to just clarify a few key points regarding the proposed re-subdivision and requested subdivision variations. First is that the requested plat of re-subdivision would approve and authorize the proposed lot layout, not the building footprints, driveways, or vertical improvements that were shown on the engineering plans submitted with the plat. Those items were submitted for illustrative purposes, not to be confused with an application for zoning approval. The final architectural plans for those homes will be subject to site and zoning review as part of the city's permitting process, and the final plans will comply with all applicable zoning standards. Relatedly, the applicant affirmatively consents to all of the recommended staff conditions of approval for the plat of re-subdivision contained in the staff report. Second key point here is that the 9-unit density under this proposed re-subdivision, equivalent to approximately 13,448 square feet per unit, is not only less than the average density on the adjoining block as discussed, and less than the density allowed by right in the R6 district as discussed. It is also, as Mr. Gold will explain, a reduction from the applicant's initial plans in the spirit of providing a development that is compatible with the surrounding neighborhood. Third, the proposed development will represent a substantial improvement in on-site stormwater management compared to the former elementary school. As discussed, the applicant estimates that the proposed development will reduce impervious surface by the equivalent of a 65% reduction. That's from the 31,240 square foot number to the, the approximately 90,000 square foot number to the approximately 30,000 square foot number. Relatedly, the project will result in the implementation of modern water, sewer, and stormwater management systems at the site, including enhanced grading, catch basins, and individual storm sewer hookups as requested by the Public Works Department and agreed to by the applicant. And finally, the proposed re-subdivision will facilitate individual driveway entrances for each single-family home. That site design, based on individual driveways, is intended to accomplish a few things. One is to avoid creating an internally oriented residential enclave in a manner that the subdivision ordinance includes a goal we're recommending against. Second is to provide a rational layout of single-family lots, feasible lots to develop and sell will facilitate the prompt reactivation of the site. And then finally, the individual driveway layout is intended to promote consistency with a predominant mode of site access in the surrounding lots, which is that of individual driveways. A 9 single-family lot development on the site does not require a traffic study under the zoning ordinance triggers due to the limited number of units proposed and limited size of the site. In any event, the traffic impact from transitioning this site from an elementary school with hundreds of frequent visitors between faculty, staff, students, and parents to 9 single-family homes would be substantial in terms of reduced traffic impact. We just have a closer look at the plat of re-subdivision itself, which we can turn back to as needed. But with that, I'll hand things over to Brad Gold to briefly discuss his development team and their history with the site. Brad.
Hi, everyone. My name is Brad Gold. I am the manager of HP Lincoln LLC and one of the developers on this site. Just wanted to give you a little background. I'm a Highland Park resident, also with one of my other partners, and my other partner, his extended family are Highland Park residents as well. We acquired the site from the school district last year in 2024. The school district decided to close this site in 2018 and decided to list it in 2023 for sale, where we bid on this property and were able to acquire it as well. We took many months to decide what to do with the site. Just so everyone knows, we did not buy this site just to tear it down. After acquiring the site and doing extensive work throughout it, we felt that it was not able to be saved. There was major issues with the building itself, with asbestos and other issues with the structure itself, which led to us deciding to tear the site down. As a Highland Park resident is one of the main reasons we wanted to acquire the site. We are invested in the community. My kids go to school in the community, business partners' kids go to school in this community, and we feel there's a huge need for new single-family residences in Highland Park. Next slide. Oh, which one? This one, okay. As you can see here on this screen, we actually originally went into this looking at a 12-lot subdivision. We were able to fit 12 lots on the site, but we felt they were going to be too compact and not right for Highland Park as it currently sits. So you can see the original plan on the left-hand side of where we designed 12 lots going in. After consulting many people who live in the area, talking to residents, we decided to reduce this to 9 lots and build a nicer product on these sites. Oh, excuse me. Okay.
Thanks so much, Brad. As Brad described, the configuration and density of the proposed subdivision was designed in part to promote compatibility with the surrounding community and also to create as many feasible regular lots as possible at a site that is otherwise highly irregular in shape and therefore virtually impossible to chop up into entirely regular lots. So for that reason, the proposed configuration requires 3 types of subdivision variations. With regards to the first, a variation is requested to allow lot 6 to have 5 sides rather than the standard 4 sides. For context, the overall site, of course, has 5 sides, as is one of the existing 5 lots of record. The applicant and engineering team worked hard to create a layout that maximizes 4-sided lots, and the proposed layout with only 1 5-sided lot is a result of that process and consistent with existing conditions. The second type of variation that's requested is to allow lots 3 through 7 to feature corners with non-right angles. For context, of course, the overall site features several exterior non-right angles, and the existing lots of record include 2 lots with non-right angles. This proposed re-subdivision reflects the work of the applicant and the engineering team to arrive at a configuration that minimizes lot angle irregularities while still providing standardized lots with a standard and safe means of site access for each. Finally, the third type of subdivision variation that's requested is one to allow lot 6 to be a through lot. As discussed, the overall site itself it contains through lots, and the through lot for lot 6 is really only a through lot because of an 18-foot wide stretch along Oakwood Avenue. Nevertheless, the applicant has agreed to an approval condition from staff that the lot 6 frontage along Oakwood will not be used for site access. Only that lot's broader frontage along Lincoln Avenue will be used for site access. As discussed, section 151.009 of the subdivision ordinance provides the general approval standard for these subdivision variations. It's that the Plan Commission may recommend variations which do not affect the general plan or spirit of the subdivision code. In addition to the specific reasons to grant these specific variations, there are several reasons why these variations as a whole do not conflict with the plan or spirit of the subdivision code. First, the variations minimize the existing irregular conditions of the site with regard to lot sides, lot boundaries, and through lots in a manner that also balances and promotes compatibility with the character of the surrounding neighborhood in terms of use, density, design, and lot angles. Second, the variations will accommodate construction of homes that will comply with the applicable zoning standards under the R6 district and with the standards under the city's master plan, including the master plan's objectives for Highland Park in general and the South Green Bay Road District in particular related to sustaining the character of existing residential communities as they grow and evolve. For instance, growing and evolving out of the use of this site as an elementary school. Third, the variations will facilitate a development that will modernize and improve utility and stormwater infrastructure at the site. And finally, the variations will allow a plat of re-subdivision that will prevent the creation of an internal facing residential enclave. To finish things off on our end, I will briefly hand things over to Don Fielding to say a few technical words about how the proposed improvements will improve stormwater at the site. Thanks, Don.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I am Don Fielding, president of Green Guard Inc. We're located in Lincolnshire. We have been practicing on the North Shore with the original office actually in Highland Park since 1952. I have been with the firm since 1968 and been registered since 1972, so I've been practicing for over 50 years. We were asked to not only prepare the final plan of subdivision as well as the engineering plans, but also to deal with the natural drainage patterns that are on the site. The drawing that you see in front of you is totally unintelligible. So let me try to simplify it for you. North is to the top. You can see it in the upper right-hand corner. Green Bay Road is to the left. Green Bay Road is a natural ridgeline that separates Lake Michigan from the Skokie River. So your drainage patterns generally are from Green Bay to the east across the site. Our design is to maintain that existing drainage pattern. The houses you can see, I think, fairly clearly are all oriented around the existing streets and are set back from the existing sidewalks. Those front yards will drain into the streets. The rear yards of the houses will drain to the back. And then that easement area that we've been talking about through the central portion of the subdivision will contain a storm sewer. And the storm sewer is intended to pick up all of that yard drainage, which represents about 80% of the site. And will then drain it to the east in the natural drainage pattern over to a 42-inch storm sewer, a large sewer, that's in Glencoe. So the majority of the site majority of the water will go into that 42-inch store, which is where it goes down for the most part on there. Now, as far as affecting the neighborhood and as far as this particular drainage design, the amount of runoff that's coming off from the site is going to be substantially less than what the school was. As you can see, we're saying that the amount of impervious is certainly half of what the school was. And to give you an idea of what that means in magnitude is when we design storm sewer systems, we use a coefficient of runoff, we call it. It's an engineering thing that represents the amount of water that soaks into the ground. On paved surfaces and parking lots and roofs, that coefficient is 0.95. For water that drains onto grass, even when it's saturated, is 0.50. So imagine all that increased runoff that's coming from the old site, which is now being reduced by the fact that we have, a third as much or half as much impervious as there is there now. So there will be no negative impact to the neighborhood. If anything, it'll improve it.
All right, does the commission have any questions for the applicant? Commissioner Imchek.
Since we were looking at that diagram that was on the last slide, I noticed there were a bunch of trees on this diagram with X's, which I assume means those trees are supposed to be removed with the development.
This is actually a detailed grading and utility plan. And we show our tree protection fencing as well as our silt fencing on here. And those trees that are shown, if you can squint, you'll see there's lines with X's in it. That's tree protection. So those trees are being preserved.
Oh, they are. Can you let us know how many trees are going to be removed with the development of this site?
I can find out by counting them all up, but I don't know off the top of my head.
Okay.
It may be worth
clarifying that one of the post re-subdivision approval steps here is following up with the forestry department to arrive at a final tree preservation plan, and that the applicant will comply with the tree preservation requirements and requests from forestry. They just haven't been finalized yet.
Can I comment on that?
Oh, please do.
To be very clear, the city forester did review this application and did not indicate objections. Of course, the question, yeah, just want to be clear, the city forester did review this.
There are tree removal fees and such that would have to be paid, and tree replanting, tree removal fees that are required if there isn't replanting on site. So our code, chapter 94, handles all of that.
Right, I don't think we're quite there yet in the plan, so.
That happens at the building permit stage
Yeah.
for projects that are by right like this ultimately. Yeah.
Right, but we don't have a landscaping plan here yet because we don't have a plat of subdivision yet, so everything in,
So this is just a plat of subdivision
Right.
at this point. The tree inventory and things like that, that would be handled by FARS.
All right, to be clear, if the plat is approved by city council, thereafter, everything would proceed by permit with the community development department, and there would not be any landscaping plan, as these are detached, single-family homes. That is
Okay.
not triggered either by Article 22 of the landscaping code, nor by Chapter 176 design review.
all right, thank you for clarifying that. Commissioner Henry?
Frankly, I'm not troubled by the irregular shape of the lots or anything like that. And in fact, the code says, insofar as practicable, which is lawyer talk for, you'll figure it out. What concerns me are that some of the comments from the neighbors, and I understand that by code, you're not required to do a traffic study. But what does concern me are comments from some of the neighbors, some of whom have, fairly respectable credentials themselves regarding the ingress and egress that is anticipated with each of these residences. And I'm wondering, and I guess it's a two-part question. One, Carl, has staff addressed that issue at all in light of some of the comments that we received? And if so, I'd be interested, does where you propose to have ingress and egress to these lots address that issue? And if not, and I know the code doesn't require a traffic study, but this commission could ask for a traffic study if it thought it was important enough. So part of my question is to you as staff and perhaps Director Fontaine, and to the developer in terms of, number one, have you seen those comments, and how do you respond to them?
I can respond to part of that, if I may, Chair.
Please do.
So in terms of comments from different residents who submitted comments, I did discuss those with the engineering division. We both looked at them. And again, the staff report is a combination of the planning divisions and engineering divisions review of that. And yes, the one thing that did concern the city were the driveways related to proximity to the intersections, and hence the city is asking condition that driveways be moved on those certain lots. I know the footprint plan may not identify that. That's why we've asked that be a condition, and the applicant amend that as follows. And then in terms of there were different comments that were submitted, and I did discuss them all with the engineering division. The only other thing I'll say, and I guess I'm repeating what I already said, but from a staff perspective, a traffic study was not triggered, and therefore staff could not require it.
But this commission could. Am I correct with that?
You could, I just don't see that it's.
I understand that.
So
I'm
with
just
all
saying.
due respect, you can, but I don't see that it would be useful.
And
The lots that are proposed have to have access to the public way
Without a
in
doubt.
some way, shape, or form. Where they access that, that's what Carl was referring to, working with the engineering division. And so having be a requirement that they load driveways in a certain location on these lots is something that we do think is important. and we'll address to the best of our ability those concerns.
And it was also discussed by staff, by myself in the engineering division, that this plat that's proposed, rather than quote unquote dumping all the traffic via cul-de-sac onto one of the streets, it actually diffuses the traffic onto several streets.
Yeah, it does.
I think at least Brad and I will just add a few things from the perspective of the applicant. First and foremost, that the applicant readily agreed to staff's recommended condition that the driveways that are nearest the intersections be moved to reduce conflicts. The individual driveway layout for the site was arrived at for reasons that Carl had added, that Brad may expand upon, that the feasibility, both from an engineering perspective and economically, of redeveloping these lots favored having individual driveway access as opposed to concentrating site access at one shared point for the 9 lots. It also is consistent with the expected marketability of 9 individual lots like this, which is a density that was explicitly reduced in order to be a bit more compatible with the neighborhood, and that therefore changes a little bit the economics of what sorts of lots are offered. Our view on the traffic study is, of course, that the commission is at liberty to require a traffic study, and that we will have to obtain one. If so, it will, of course, candidly cost the development a bit of time, which might complicate things with the end of the summer construction season, and God forbid, complicate some of the economic factors that might be impacting labor and materials. The main reason that we did not volunteer to perform a traffic study is that, in our view, the reduction from operation of the site as a school with at the end 200 students plus faculty and staff, 40 on-site parking spaces and a drop-off and pickup zone, to a 9 single-family home development is clearly a reduction in traffic impact, and one that can be managed through agreeing to conditions like what staff recommended with the driveways. Brad, if you want to add anything.
Yeah, just to address that as well. We did look at this with doing a cul-de-sac, and it would create more irregular shaped lots, and it would create a neighborhood that's not in uniformity with the rest of the neighborhood, right? You'd have a cul-de-sac with all the houses facing in, all the backyards facing out, when every single other house is there. Is the opposite. All the houses face out in the street. As Braden said, the school had, I think, 250 students when it closed, plus faculty and staff, which would equate to almost 600 to 700 trips per day. The average house is 9 to 10 trips per day. So that would equate to 80 to 90. So we're talking 70 to 80% reduction in traffic just from the prior use to the current use. And again, reiterating, we have agreed to move the driveways so they don't back into the intersections as far away as possible.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Any more questions for the applicant? Questions down here for the applicant? All right, do we have any questions from the public? So I think I'll have you come up and speak one at a time to the podium. And we'll need your name, and we'll have 3 minutes each to speak. So go ahead.
So I'm Rick Heineman. I live on Glencoe Avenue, about 10 houses north of this development. I had an opportunity to speak with Brian Rome of the Park District about this project, and I recommend that the applicant and the City Planning Department do the same. Because right now you're going to have 5 curb cuts with this plan on Lincoln Avenue West, which right now is basically serves as parking during baseball games. What was interesting, what Brian mentioned to me, and I knew this, but he emphasized it, was that they're going from 2 full-size baseball fields to 1 full-size and 1 practice field. So it's the belief of the Park District that there'll be less need for parking in that general area, and that the 5 curb cuts is not going to cause a problem. Again, I recommend that you follow up directly with these folks rather than just take my word for it. But the other thing that the applicant should also do is talk to the Park District about their construction schedule, because they're going to be rebuilding that park rather substantially. And it's going to be a tremendous, it's going to be a great park. The plan is terrific, but again, they probably need to coordinate construction schedules. So I don't really have any questions per se, but I just wanted to bring those points up. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much.
Just real quick, we've been in touch.
Okay, can you come and speak at the microphone, please, so that we get all of your comments?
Sorry. Just to that point, we've been in touch with the Park District over many, many months. We're actually doing a brick drive with bricks we've saved from the school that is to be all donated to the Park District. We've also saved 2 columns from the school that are going to be incorporated into the new park across the street. And we've been in touch with them as far as construction schedule as well, and they're very well aware of our schedule, and we're aware of their schedule. So yeah, you're welcome.
Just also for the record, the city staff has been in contact with the Park District as well, myself included.
Wonderful.
That's correct.
All right, next, please come on up.
Good evening, I'm Lloyd Hubbard. I live at 1364 Glencoe, which is right next to the old Lincoln School. A couple of things. Currently, the construction for the tear down was 1 entrant exit, or 2, sorry. One was on Glencoe and the other was, I think, on Green Bay. Is that how the construction site is going to work for the 9 houses that you're going to build? Or how are you going to access? You know, where is all your construction, where's all that going to be? Because my concern is basically that street, whichever they're on, Lincoln, Glencoe, Green Bay, obviously you can't really jam that up. You know, if that's going to block us up while you're doing construction. The second is the timeline. Are you going to build all 9 of these as quickly as possible, or is it going to be stretched out over time? And just if that is so, let's say that you're going to only build several and not all of them, and it's going to be some time before you build all 9. The fence that's going around that whole construction site is terrible looking, and every time it gets windy, it starts flapping, and it's fine if it's going to be, you know, a limited amount of time for construction. But if it's going to be a couple of year project, something else I think should happen to make the neighborhood look good while this is all going on, or better than it currently does. And that's it.
Would the applicant like to answer that?
Yes. So our plan is to build all of these in phases. We aren't going to build and then stop, build and stop. Our plan is to start with 4 right off the bat this summer, which will be lots 1, 2, 3, and 4, which are on the east side of the property, which also allows us to use the rest of the property for staging, and we won't have to be blocking up streets. You know, if we were building everything at once, we'd be staging on streets, blocking off streets. We won't have to do any of that because we'll be able to use the existing site to stage our equipment, and there'll be entrances and exits. Most likely we'll be using one and then switch to the other, depending on where we're building. But again, with building 9 houses, I wish we could do them all at one time. We have to phase them out. Our plan is to start 4 right away this summer, late summer. And we are preparing to submit our plans as soon as possible to get that underway and then move around the site. So the last houses will most likely be 8 and 9, but it can change in variation. But we are looking to start right away and move along the process as we go.
Thank you. Okay, please come on up.
Good evening. I live on Oakwood, first house when you turn off Green Bay.
And what's your name, please?
It's Reed Anderson.
Okay.
And I was just wondering, the condition of Green Bay Road between Lincoln and Bobolink is probably the worst section of road on Green Bay Road in the entire North Shore. So my question is, when the trucks are pulling in, obviously it's going to do some more damage to that. Is there any thought to repairing that when the work is done? Because it's just a disaster. You know, every night, every day I hear trucks pounding through that. And I've lived with it for 7 years. at first it was gonna be taken care of when they were gonna do the whole Green Bay project, but
Right.
that never happened, so.
It's been delayed. It's been delayed. It hasn't,
I think it will happen.
It will happen, but it's just been
I'm not holding our breath.
I know. We all drive on it.
So,
But yes, we can make a note of it.
I mean, even just a few sections would make a huge difference where it's collapsing near the one, main manhole cover. It's only gonna get worse with all the truck traffic. So that
Okay.
was just voicing my opinion on that.
Thank you.
So generally speaking, Madam Chair, if I may.
Yes, please do.
So when construction projects happen, what we do is we take pictures of roadway conditions prior and then after. And
Okay,
if there is considerable wear and tear conditions that deteriorated due to they could be attributable fairly to the construction, they have to repair that.
okay,
The Green Bay is slated to be redone. I just will say that it's just not, this year. It's a few years from now. I think it's going to be 28-ish, but don't quote me on that. I'd like to confer with Public Works, but it's still out there on our schedule of things to do.
okay, thank you. Any more questions from the public or comments? Okay. Any more comments from the commissioners? So one note that came across from somebody from the public was making sure that the applicant look at and this is, I'm sorry, this is packet page 44, that maybe the applicant take a look at the established setbacks in the neighborhood and try to match the new houses to be something similar, so, just a comment, so. Yeah, feel free to come up,
Madam
yeah.
Chair, the zoning code still applies, and upon building permit review, we would take a look at setbacks and such, including
Okay.
the established building setback as applicable.
Okay.
And where applicable. One thing just to note, a commissioner board can't make a condition of approval something that would necessitate additional relief.
Okay.
Because it's in conflict with another law, yeah. So just, I'm sure they could keep that in mind and see what they can
That's all
do
I'm
within the law.
asking.
then
That's all I'm
that's
asking,
fine.
because I know when we've had other developments come through like this, that the developer did take a look at the neighborhood and try to match what the neighborhood was doing. So just a personal opinion. Mr. Burhop, did you have something else?
No, thanks.
Okay. All right, so I think we were looking at a motion to,
So if I may,
Oh, yeah, please.
Madam Chair.
Yes, you may.
I would move that we adopt the findings of fact, recommending to the city council for a proposed preliminary and final plat of re-subdivision, 711 West Lincoln Avenue, or Lincoln Avenue West, sorry, 1349 to 1357 Oakwood Avenue, formerly the Lincoln School site, that requests variations to the City of Highland Park subdivision code with conditions A through G as in, I'm sorry, A through H as included in the findings of fact.
do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, seconded by Commissioner Mantis and Commissioner Fettner. All right, any discussion from the commission on this motion? Commissioner Henry, you were the one who suggested maybe the commission should require a traffic study. Where does the commission sit on that?
So I'm just speaking in favor of the motion. I think it's common sense that what's been said here already, 9 single-family homes will not have the traffic impact of a 250-student school. I don't see that we need to burden anybody, even ourselves, with a study on that. I think the talk or the comments regarding other site configurations, it sounds like to me, I thought the petitioners explained pretty well the process they went through And it convinced me that this is probably the best alternative. It fits the zoning, obviously. They've reduced the proposal. And mostly, I think this, you know, I think this will work. I think it will probably work well. And a lot of the other, a lot of the stuff that people want, should it be a park or this, that, or the other thing is irrelevant, but, that's the school district sold this to these people, and they knew what the zoning was, and I think they've done a fairly good job in putting this together.
Yeah, I agree. I think that, I saw the letters coming in, there's a lot of concern on the traffic, but aside from it not being required, if you do look at it, you've got a school, and it's not just, morning and afternoon drop-off, there's basketball games and other sports things and parent-teacher conferences. So there's traffic coming in and out of that school, at all times. So I really don't see how the traffic would be negatively impacted with the development. And you saw, even with the R6 district, they exceed a lot of those restrictions. So I'd be in support of it. I think it's a nice development. I think they definitely showed due diligence in, what they could have done as far as more homes. I think it was 13, and they got it down to 9. So I think it's a nice development. I'm in support of it.
Okay, any more comments down here?
Yeah, one comment. I think we've all seen enough traffic studies that they'll probably paper over any sort of thing anyway, so it'll be negligible at best.
Yeah, I agree. I live there.
We've seen bigger developments and
I use
there's no
that
impact.
Lincoln
so.
Avenue all the time, and it's so much better than it used to be with the school. So I don't feel the need to push for a traffic study.
If I may respond, sure.
Oh, go ahead.
I don't disagree. I thought the explanation, first of all, I'm intimately knowledgeable of Lincoln School. In fact, for those of you who may have been around 20 some odd years ago, Lincoln School is one of the schools that we thought about, that the school district thought about getting rid of, but they instead rebuilt Oak Terrace instead of Lincoln School. Lincoln School was always, to me, the Rube Goldberg School in District 112. It made no sense. They had hallways that went nowhere.
So many stairwells.
I think that the applicant's explanation of what they thought would happen, even though it's anecdotal, I think was persuasive. Particularly when you consider, as has been mentioned, the amount of traffic that was generated by the school with buses coming in and parents dropping off and picking up and stuff. So I'm satisfied with that.
All right, Mr. Fontaine, will you call the roll, please?
Yes. Commissioner Incheck.
Aye.
Commissioner Fettner.
Aye.
Commissioner Nanis.
Aye.
Commissioner Henry.
Aye.
Commissioner Mantis.
Aye.
Vice Chair Kirsch.
Aye.
And Chair Moore.
Aye.
The ayes have it. The motion carries. This item has been recommended to City Council for approval with conditions. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. All right. Our next item is a, Carl, did we open this as a hearing last time or no?
We did. This was continued from 3 weeks ago.
Okay, yes.
From April 15th.
Okay. All right, so the next item is a continued hearing, public hearing PUD 2025-00050 for a special use permit in the nature of a concurrent preliminary and final plan development, final plat of re-subdivision and design review with modifications from city code at 2090 to 2100 Green Bay Road and 580 to 582 Glenview Avenue.
Madam Chair, Senior Planner Zubin Colvin will make this presentation.
All right, wonderful.
We're just trying to quiet folks down.
Yes, I'm
Can't close the door.
You can't close the door,
It has to
unfortunately.
stay open, at least one, yeah.
I forgot to chastise everyone on their way out. To be quiet.
Great echo in here.
All right, it's starting to settle down.
All right, I think that's a little better, right?
Yes, all right, senior planner, Meta, please go ahead.
All right, hello, commissioners, nice to see you again. As the chair stated, this is for a PUD re-subdivision design review for the townhome development at Green Bay Road and Glenview Avenue. So just a quick summary from what we discussed last time. Right now, we have a preliminary PUD approval for a 22-unit townhome development. There have been some modifications from the code since the last time we discussed this project, which I'll get into in the coming slides. There will be 22 three-story townhomes. Each townhome has an attached two-car garage. There are 2 drive aisles that will be accessible off Green Bay Road and the public alley. And at the April 15th PDC meeting, this was reviewed for preliminary consideration and continued to today's May 6th meeting. Here we just have an overview again of what the application was intended for and to be reviewed. So let's get right to the changes. The attachments, including the staff report, had bubble changes for the new updated materials. As you can see on the screen here, the building 1, the top building that is parallel to Glenview Avenue, that building was reduced from 8 units to 7 units. Some other bubble changes, you'll see the unit BAs, those facades were changed. Unit CAs, the floor plans were slightly changed. Building 1, the top building, the setbacks were increased on the rear setback that is parallel to the alley and the front setback that's parallel to Green Bay Road. And there was benches installed in the walkways between building 2 and 3. So to get into the facade changes, here we have buildings 1 and 3 on the top and building 2 on the bottom. There was a comment made at the last meeting that it was easy to identify the inclusionary units due to those units being the only ones with the fiber cement siding for the interior units. Now the unit to the right of each inclusionary unit also has that fiber cement siding, thus breaking up the continuity of the rhythm of the facade. Other changes were new renderings that were submitted by the applicant team. That was a comment that was also made, that they only submitted elevations. Here we have a top-down view of the rendering of the townhome development. Here is a better rendering up close if you're looking east on Glenview Avenue. And then here we have another rendering if you're looking south on Green Bay Road. And what this rendering also shows a little bit is the proposed parklet. That is one of the major changes that the applicant team is now putting forth in their proposal. So to discuss the parklet, that is included as part of their revised public benefit. At the last meeting, the public benefit, the applicant team simply said improving the alley, walkways, sidewalks, sewer improvements was public alley. Commission commented that that is just further code requirement. So they've kind of tweaked their public benefit. As I just previously stated, the parklet will include 2 benches, a public art proposal that they'll decide at a later date, either through a competition or soliciting artwork through local vendors, and adding additional plantings and open space. Another public benefit that they're further clarifying is the alley improvement, but not just the length of the alley from Glenview Avenue to the bottom of the development. It extends all the way from Glenview Avenue to Homewood Avenue. You can see in the red rectangle on the screen, that's a portion of the alley that's not included in this development and will be improved. It will be improved with brick pavers, as that is now something that the Public Works Department is looking into for further alleyway improvements. And also, the Engineering Division of Public Works confirmed that this site, in order to develop these townhomes, it wasn't necessary to improve that part of the alley. So that is a further improvement
or in their case, a public benefit that they're proposing.
And are those permeable pavers or just regular brick pavers?
I gotta clarify on that,
Okay.
Madam Chair. Changes to the landscape plan, you can see the bubble changes on bookending each end, on Glenview Avenue. They provided additional plantings, and as I will get into the proposed relief, the updated proposed relief, they are now just one evergreen tree short of the requirement. Some other changes, the third-party civil tech review was completed. The only comment that they had was that the south radius of the southernmost driveway is smaller and could be run over by vehicles making that right on Green Bay Road. The applicant team response was that curb cut on the southmost of the southernmost driveway is actually on the other property, so they don't want to impede the other property without getting permission, but the applicant team is open to doing that if the commission views that that should be a requirement for this. They also submitted a response to the environmental checklist, which was included as attachment 11 in the staff report, and they included an attachment of neighborhood context from a top-down angle, looking at the other neighboring properties and the setbacks and whatnot, and that's included as attachment 12. So the changes to the zoning relief based on the applicant's team modified design, they are now increasing the proposed front setback on Glenview Avenue. That is a required 25-foot front setback that they were applying for 9 feet along Glenview. They're proposing 8 feet along Glenview Avenue and 10 feet along Green Bay Road. The Green Bay Road one is remaining. Building 1 technically now has a greater front setback, but buildings 2 and 3 still have that same 10-foot front setback along Green Bay Road. So that's a minor change. Another decent change, section 150.704, the maximum 33.3% lot coverage requirement. They were proposing 47.1. Now they're proposing 44%, so that's a reduction in 3% of the maximum lot coverage, which is 32% over magnitude. And as for the open space, that was their biggest modification change. They're now at 19.8%, which is just 1% underneath the requirement. They increased their open space from 16% to 19.8%. And that had to do with reducing the 1 unit, going from 23 to 22, adding the parklet, adding more plantings, trees, and more open space. Some other changes to the zoning relief. I misspoke earlier. They're good on the evergreen trees now. They meet the 7 requirement of evergreen trees. As for the shade ornamental trees, the requirement is 18 trees. They are now only need a relief of 7 as they're proposing 11 of those trees. And a comment was made at the last meeting as far for the HVAC ground mounted mechanical unit screening. They originally did not propose any screening. Now they are. And you can see a detail at the bottom of an example of the lattice that they will use. And that's also included on the landscape plan that outlines the changes. Some new requested zoning relief that wasn't discussed at the last meeting. The applicant requests relief from the subdivision code, section 151.008, subsection 7. The requirement to bury all utility lines. They clarified that all new utility lines will be buried. What the applicant is requesting is that they simply slightly relocate the existing utility pole at the southwest corner of the lot, slightly north. The engineering division did not have any issues with leaving the utility pole overhead above ground, as indicated in the engineering comments that were submitted as an attachment with this report. Another new requested zoning relief, the applicant submitted a lighting plan, which is included as attachment 10. They don't meet the lighting requirements, but they do provide the lighting, some of the lighting specs as far as the foot candles, for the bollards, the lighting next to the garages, and the lighting next to the front door. The zoning relief, that is not changing, that's still the exact same from the last April 15th meeting we were at, is that the rear setback is going to remain 14 feet in relief. Again, building 1 did technically increase the rear setback by reducing that top row of units from 8 to 7, but building 2 still does require that 14-foot setback, which is set forth in their proposal. The minimum landscape planting in depth is supposed to be at least 5 feet. It's still 3 feet basically along the perimeter and on the south and in the northwest corner of the lot. And there is still no fence on the west lot line as required by code. As for the Housing Commission review, after last meeting, April 15th, and went to the Housing Commission meeting on April 16th, at that meeting, the development team did share the facades of the new elevations that they talked about here. The commission were very open and acceptable to those designs. They had no issues with the location of the inclusionary units or the amenities or any other requirements set forth in Article 21. With this tweaked design, technically the inclusionary requirement from 23 units to 22 units has reduced the requirement from 3.6 inclusionary units to 3.4. The applicant is still keeping the location of the existing inclusionary units the same. All that tweak did from 23 to 22 was just reduce the payment in lieu fee that will be made to the Housing Trust Fund for the partial unit. And the preliminary review will be continued to tomorrow's Housing Commission meeting to preliminary accept the modified design with the reduction in the number of units. Also, a result from the last meeting was that the alternate floor plan layout that was proposed for inclusionary units, as for getting rid of the tandem car garage and just leaving a single car garage for a little more livable space, that wasn't accepted by the commission. The commission feels that they would rather have 2 car garages for the inclusionary units, such as the market rate units. A comment that was made both by commissioners and public comment at the last meeting was the neighborhood parking context, and this is a verbatim from the report. I was able to get this information from the police department to provide further clarity on the parking situation, since there is little to no parking, and the report and this excerpt here pretty much confirms that there is no parking on Glenview Avenue except for small 2-hour overtime parking a little on the northeast side. There's a little minimal parking on Homewood and obviously none on Green Bay or Midlothian, I think. Comparison of the Bloom Street townhomes, we also mentioned about that. What isn't up here right now is the square footage of the lots. For the Bloom Street townhomes, the square footage was around 51,000. For the Green Bay Glenview site, this is about 36,000. And you can see some of the metrics up here. The Green Bay Glenview is in the RM2, whereas the Bloom Street townhomes were in the RM1. With this reduced design that the applicant has set forth, now both developments do have 22 units, which further aids to why this comparison was wanted, to see what the specs and zoning dimensions were. But it's just simply that Green Bay Glenview allows for more density and is more density on a smaller site. As you can see, the density per acre for the Bloom Street townhomes, that came out to 18.7 units per acre, whereas the Green Bay Glenview is 26.2. The density requirement for per unit is 2904 for Bloom Street and 1442 square feet per unit for the Green Bay Glenview. For the density that was provided from the design, you can see that the Bloom Street townhome did actually have smaller units than what was permitted by right for the code, but that had to do with the market rate units that they received for providing on-site affordable units at that property, whereas this site didn't get the benefit from the market rate units due to them not being able to squeeze any more units on the site, pretty much. The lot coverage, the Bloom Street Townhome didn't meet the 33.3% requirement, whereas Green Bay Glenview with the reduction is at 44%, which is part of that modified relief included in the report, in the proposal. And the open space, Bloom Street was above the 20% requirement with 25.9, albeit they did have a bigger lot. Green Bay Glenview did make strides to try to meet the 20% minimum requirement, but they did fall just short, technically 1% short. And the public comment was included as attachment 14 in the staff report. There has been no new public comment submitted to staff since the packet posting last week. So the staff's recommendation that this proceed discussion for a preliminary PUD and come back for a final PUD at the commission's discretion, and or direct staff to draft findings of fact. The applicant team had a presentation they wanted to make, or not. I'm welcome to take questions.
Madam Chair, I just want to make one comment. So as you saw in the comparison of the two developments, one was able to benefit from the market rate unit bonus through exceeding the zoning, otherwise allowed zoning density, and the other was not. That doesn't mean that the other development, this development, didn't get the bonuses. It just meant that they weren't utilized to increase the density, that's all. So
Okay, thank you.
both developments got the market rate unit bonuses for the on-site affordable. I just want to make that clear. You can, depending on how you lay out your project, you can exceed the zoning density allotment using those bonuses or not, but they both got the bonuses.
Okay.
Okay?
And then is there a reason why we're not providing that fence on the west side?
Mark Korinsky, HCAM Architects and Planners. Hi there. The way we're reading the code, it's more of an interpretation. The idea of a fence on the side is because you're up against an alley. So if you think of homes that were, the parcel you just looked at now, if the homes were facing onto the ball field, there's no place for the fence. So if we put a fence up against, it'd literally be up against the side of the townhomes or the row homes. So, you either have a drive aisle to get into the alley, which you're obviously not putting a fence there, or you'd put a fence up where there's a building. So we thought it was duplicitous to put a fence literally right next to our building.
Okay. Thank you. All right, does the commission have any questions for staff or for our applicant? Go ahead, Commissioner Nanis.
Yeah, I have a question for both staff and then also for the applicant. Is there any code requirement on the size of the width of the drive aisle in between the units? Is there a minimum requirement?
I know the minimum requirement for a two-way drive aisle is,
Do you want me to respond?
yeah, I don't have the code in front of me.
Well, I want to make sure I always check the context, because there can always be nuances to everything, but in general, the minimum width of a drive aisle is 25.67 feet.
Well, the reason I ask is the southernmost drive aisle is 24 feet in width based on the renderings on page 72, if I'm not reading this incorrectly. Correct? It's 72 on the packet. It has the,
Yeah, that drive aisle width on page, did you want me to respond?
yeah, no, basically my point is the southern drive aisle is 24 feet, the northern drive aisle is 30 feet. Two of the issues is around the setback on Glenview and the amount of green space. So my question is, one is if there's a minimum requirement, and two, why the applicant won't reduce the drive aisle on the northern drive aisle to 24 feet, push the setback to 15 feet, which would be more congruent with most of the homes along Glenview Avenue. And it would increase the green space, allow you to stay more up to code on the tree requirements, because you'd have an extra 5 feet to play around with for plantings.
But for fire department. So we've got this fine dance that we've been doing and we've been working real hard with the fire department. If you look at the plan, we've got the balconies there. They're 4.5-foot balconies we show, and then you show on the one plan that we provided you, it's got the orange circulation route for the fire access. And with numerous conversations with them, they want to be able to access off of Green Bay and then use the alley, the improved alley that we're using. So it is literally a sort of a watch that we're creating here in terms of providing that. And then you also have those air conditioning units that we just talked about screening. So we're trying to keep those out of the path of the fire and everything else. So it's this fine watch that we've been looking at. And, believe me, we were looking at every little inch when we came to you. Last time we said we found another foot on the front. I mean, we've been looking at it like a city project and looking at, 4-inch increments, trying to make it work.
I guess I just don't fully understand how the fire truck could fit in a 24-foot drive aisle on the south end, but not on a 24-foot one on.
Well, you don't have.
And again, I don't drive a fire truck.
Me neither.
It looks the same to me from a layperson who doesn't drive a rig. So, I mean, that's just my personal point of view and feedback. Again, none of us drive a fire truck, but they look like the same turn angles and ingress and egress, and I
think
I don't understand why there's.
about the balconies overhead, that maybe.
But those
that's
are
not
accounted for in the
Okay.
spacing from, I don't know.
Chairman, I make a general comment on that.
Please do.
This is a general comment. I don't know the specifics on this, and of course, from a staff perspective, of course, we'll follow up with any questions that there are. But I do know in general, the applicant is absolutely correct that, because earlier you asked me what the drive aisle width was, and I said 25.67 feet. Yes, that's right in the zoning code, but I can already think of one example, not for this development, for another one where the townhome height was either 35 or 40 feet and it triggered a minimum 26-foot width. Now that was in that case. I can't comment specifically on this, but I do know in general that is correct. The fire department does have concerns about width for drive aisles. And of course, we can follow up with specifics on that.
And getting into the weeds, if you look, there's 2 other dimensions on there. There's 21 feet from balcony to balcony. And if you look on the south one, there's, I believe, 20 feet from the property or that curb to the balcony.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. So, I don't know, one of the things that I look at here is that we are asking still for an awful lot of, to me, an awful lot of relief. So if there's any way, is there any way to, like, 'cause I understand we can't always, for the size of it, we may not be able to get you want the setback reductions for the front and the rear. We have a maximum lot coverage increase. Our open space isn't perfect, but I think that's like right at 20%, so I'm willing to, I don't have a problem with that. But landscape plantings, we want a smaller number for that. So rather than 5 feet, we're asking for 3 feet. One of the things that came up was the lighting. And if there's any way to work with that, make sure we're meeting the lighting requirements from the city would be appreciated, like no uplighting. I don't remember what the other ones were. Come on.
Maybe I should just stay up here.
Yeah, possibly.
So here's, when we took notes last time we were here, and what we tried to do is try to remove as much of the relief as possible. But the other thing we tried to do is we tried to listen to the residents here, and then you guys were asking, and even though it's not a single family, you're asking about the context. We provided the context and the like. So part of it, even in just, if you go to the setback off of the street to the north, if you look at that, across the street from us, there's a 0 setback. There's a non-residential use at a 0 setback. The homes to the west of us vary, but 2 of them, the second and third one off the alley are a 20-foot setback. So they're not in compliance with current codes. There's nothing wrong with them. It's a nice character. But so we're looking at it, and the homes on the north side of the street, some of them are 13-ish feet. I'm doing this from memory. So I think it's better to look at the context of that setback that we are doing in relationship to the adjacent and immediate surroundings. So that's where we were looking at it. When we took the unit out, which obviously if you only have 23 units, taking one unit out is a big cost differential. When we looked at it, we had a couple options on what to do with that. And one of them we thought, and we heard about the people walking their dogs and the relief and public benefit. We looked at the Bloom project and the corner park. And we could have put all the space in that corner park, but then that didn't comply with some of the comments from the neighborhood of how do you transition? Because this really is a transition parcel, right? You have the commercial, you have the character of Green Bay exponentially different than the residential before you hit the hospital. So we took some of that open space, or that new open space from that unit that we took away. We put most of it on the east at that corner park, but then we also put some of it on the west along the alley.
Yeah, and overall, I think it looks so much better. It makes the development look less crowded because you have opened up either side of that northernmost unit.
And that gave us place for the evergreen trees, because we didn't want to come before you and put evergreen trees where there's no space for them.
Right.
So we have the evergreen trees, so then all of a sudden, so it was this balancing act in terms of all of it. So do we wish we could come here and say, hey, listen, there's zero relief being requested? That's a balancing act too, because we didn't want to come in with smaller units that aren't working for the market and the like. So believe me, we tried, even the 19, and all joking aside, I think we missed it by 0.2% or something like that, the 19.8%. We're not going to sit here, we're not going to sit here and lie to you and say, hey, it's 20% and I dare you to challenge us. We're giving you very open and saying, here's what it is, and we're really trying to listen to the neighbors, we're trying to listen to you, we're trying to listen to inclusionary housing, and say, hey, here's what it does. No,
I appreciate the work done on it, because, we've always said here that, I think the work that we do here at the PDC with the applicant always makes a project better, and I do think this is a better project. So, that's probably my only other comment was if there's uplighting that can be removed so that we can.
And I'm sorry, because I started talking and lost my train of thought. Lighting. So here's what we did from last time we were here. We added 4 bollards in the space between them. Okay. We have, and we showed you a lighting layout. So we have on a photo cell, we have a light over each garage. And then on a photo cell, we have a light over everybody's front door. Okay, so it's not subject to who's in there right then.
Right.
They will be on. In addition, what we did is we added 4 bollards. We are not complying with your code, because your code, we're looking at it as more of a quieter residential. There's so much noise, there's so much activity and light on Green Bay. We wanted it to be a little darker in that courtyard. What we're providing is a bollard. You guys know the traditional 42-inch high bollard. It shoots down all the lights, all the lights being proposed are dark sky. We're complying with all that. But the idea is to create a pool of light right on that sidewalk that doesn't infringe on the people that are living there, but provides you a safety zone. You can see the next pool and you're following along, versus putting a 16-foot pole there that now starts to shine in everybody's residence. It may comply with your ordinance. And you guys know that, the ordinance, we're trying to comply with the intent of the ordinance. We're trying to provide a safe area, but still, as if I was living there, my kids, my mom, whomever, that, how would they want to experience the space? So that's where the relief we're asking, but we believe we're complying with the intent, which is, we have 0 light at the perimeter. So we're not flooding light anywhere, even into the alley. So we're trying to comply with the intent, our interpretation of the intent of the ordinances.
Okay, thank you. Does the commission have any more questions for the applicant? All right, does anybody from the public wish to speak? All right, please come on up to the, did you speak before? Did we swear you in? Okay, so but go ahead, Carl, maybe you want to fix the microphone and bring it down, and then please state your name so that we can get it right for the record.
Thank you. My name is Larry Green, and I'm representing the 619 Condo Association. First of all, we appreciate the fact that we were heard last time, and that some of the modifications we discussed have been included in the new proposal. There are a couple of things that are still a matter of concern to us. One is the setback on Glenview. And secondly, there's talk of this 2-hour parking cutout on Glenview to the north. That building is for sale, and there's no guarantee that that cutout is going to remain there. So there's still a question about visitor parking. We have 16 units in our building and 11 visitor parking spaces in addition to 20 parking spaces underground. So there's a big differential in terms of visitor parking between what exists on this, and as it's already been stated, the street is a no parking street because of the ambulance access to the hospital and the traffic to and from the hospital. So those are the only issues that remain with us. Again, we appreciate the fact that we were heard last time and that some modifications have been made. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Yes, so Carl, maybe you could speak to, they are meeting the requirements for off-street parking, correct? For guest parking for this, a size of this development?
Yes, Chair, that's correct. The requirement is only 5 spaces, and they're providing 5 spaces on site.
Okay. Thank you. Yes, I don't know what we can do about the street, but we can't make them provide 10 or 15 guest spaces just because the parking on the street is so goofy. You know, one hopes that, you know, because it is more of an urban development, more of the visitors will be walking or can park around the corner on a different street. Okay, just a minute. If you want to come up and say something, please raise your hand, come up to the podium and speak. Okay, come on up. That's fine. Have you been sworn in previously?
Yes, I was
Okay.
sworn in last time.
All right, so go ahead, state your name
My name is
again.
Sarah Bazer, B-A-Z-E-R. I also live in 619 Glenview Avenue. There is no parking on the street. I don't understand how 5 parking spaces is sufficient for 22 townhomes. It doesn't seem, there's no parking on Green Bay, there's no parking on Glenview. I don't believe there's parking, is there parking on Homewood? No. So there is no place for them to park. So 5 spots for 22 units.
That's for their guests.
Yes, for their
Yes,
guests,
yes.
I'm saying. If more than 2 people have a few guests, they're out of parking spaces like that. And I don't understand why, yes, they went from 9 to 10 feet, 1 foot, but the code is 25 feet. So that seems a considerable difference than what should be suitable.
Okay, thank you for your comments. Anybody else for a comment? Please, lady in the second row, why don't you come on up? Did we swear you in previously? Okay, so come on up and I'll swear you in. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, name please?
Jenny Feinberg.
Okay, and you have
I'm-
3 minutes.
And I'm also at 619 Glenview. I'm excited about this project. I have some concerns about the traffic in the area, and I want to know if a traffic study was done with the high school and with other elementary schools off of Green Bay Road. The morning and the afternoon, it is beyond a nightmare on Green Bay Road. So I want to know if any traffic studies were done, because we're going to be adding a lot of cars to that small area, and the school Vine is right there, the high school, so I'm concerned about that. So that is a major concern, and also I'm concerned about still about the density of this project. I think it's going to be great for the neighborhood. I just feel that it's taking up, substantially the space, and I'm concerned that it's going to look very dense and very clustered in there. So those are my concerns. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Was there a traffic study? I thought there was,
At
yes.
the last meeting, we discussed a traffic impact statement that was
Yeah, if
submitted.
you wanted to give us a summary, that would be great.
Right, that traffic impact statement was submitted in the engineering division, and the third-party review had no comments about the traffic impact statement. I'll leave it to the applicant team to discuss the specifics and the findings from that traffic impact statement.
Meaning that the city's third-party consultant did not object.
Right. I thought that's what I remembered.
Anthony Oakes, attorney for the applicant. Koenig, Lidgren, O'Hara, and Buna performed a traffic study for the original plan, which included 23 townhomes. Their summaries were, their conclusions were the proposed residential development will be a relatively low traffic generator. The proposed development generated traffic will not have a significant impact on area roadways, as it is projected to increase traffic by less than 1%. The proposed access system is adequate in accommodating the proposed development generated traffic.
Okay, thank you. Next, lady in the, yes, you in the back there. Near the back. Have we sworn you in previously?
Yes.
Okay.
My name is Christina Tomhane.
Okay.
I don't know what the significance is for you all of the public benefit of any of the alley improvements that were talked about. But I just wanted to let everyone know that nobody uses that alley right now. I live like 3 lots down on the Homewood side, and I've never seen a car go in or out of our side of that alleyway in the 9 years that I've lived here. So obviously that alley will be used for the people who live in the proposed development, but any improvements to the structure of that alleyway is really not going to do anything for those of us who live in the area, because there's no reason for any of us to go up or down or in or out of that alleyway with so many regular streets around. That's all. Thank you.
All right, thanks for your comment. All right, anybody else? Director Fontaine.
The assessment of whether or not something is a public benefit is something that the commission should look at. And generally speaking, if it's an improvement that's, essentially needed for the development itself, such as, a larger water service or sewer service or things like that, those generally aren't, right? Things immediately abutting a development project as well in terms of street improvements. They are proposing to improve the entire length of that alleyway though. And while one doesn't necessarily use that alleyway, that for all the people in that area don't necessarily use the alleyway, what it will do is it will distribute the traffic from this development certainly and reduce the traffic impact that it has and enable a lesser impact. So just something to
Yes,
consider.
perhaps people will, instead of leaving onto Green Bay Road, will leave through the alley and filter off onto one of the side streets before getting onto a main street.
Correct. So that is a judgment call as to whether or not you consider the additional portion of let's call it the second half of that, the southerly half of that, a public benefit. The portion abutting the development, I would not. I think that absolutely has to happen, and one could even make an argument that the entirety does, but it's something to consider.
Right, and then if it's paved with the permeable brick,
That would be an addition.
we were starting to consider that may be a public benefit as well.
That would be, that aspect of it, yes.
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 Okay, so we would be looking to approve the findings of, approve the,
Prepare.
what was that?
There are findings of fact.
There are no, so we would be looking to have findings of fact prepared for.
This is just a direct documents, correct?
That's right.
Yeah. This is just a direct documents would be the next, if the commission doesn't have additional questions or need for additional information at this time, we'd ask that the commission vote to direct that staff to draft findings of fact and in the affirmative, if that's what the commission is choosing. And if there's any other additional information to state that so that we can bring it back for that time when you do have those before you for a final vote of recommendation.
All right, so does the commission have any more questions or comments that the applicant should take back?
None.
Okay, so we would be looking to direct staff to, a motion to direct staff to draft findings of fact in favor of this development.
Make a motion to direct staff to prepare findings of fact approving the applicant development plan.
Okay, motion by Commissioner Fettner, do we have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Imchuk.
Madam Chair, before we vote. can I
Yes,
just
any more
disclose that
discussion on this? Yes.
I was not at the last meeting when we first contemplated this, but I did watch the video and feel prepared to vote.
Okay, thank you for letting us know
Thank you for
that.
letting us know that for the record.
I did that too, twice. Because I was listening to one guy speak and another guy was at the podium. It was not synced, as I mentioned to Carol.
Thank you for letting us know about
Thank you for
Yeah,
letting us know.
YouTube was much better.
it. It was provided by the AV. Thank Walter who's listening.
Madam Chair, I also watched the video in advance and was not present at the last meeting.
Okay, thank you for letting us know that you are up to date.
A couple of comments, if I may.
Please.
Madam Chair, I want to thank the petitioners for all the changes they made after our previous meeting. I think they really did take what we said to heart, and they have really improved this project quite a bit, as you pointed out. I think we have I still have reservations about this, but I thought long and hard about the RM2 zoning and the density and the urbanness of this project. And, I think, you sort of have to make a decision, right? Are you going to allow this kind of density? And obviously by code we do. And in that case, I think we do need to go ahead and consider those variations as part and parcel of what we need to accept in bringing this kind of development here. It is a tight site. The density seems high, even though, again, it's not by the code. My main problem with this whole thing is it still seems to me to lack imagination. It still seems to me that with the whole PUD process, we just get 3 buildings lined up, and I'm going to have a hard time on the design review myself because I still think it's rather monotonous. So I'm still kind of on the fence about this, but I don't know. If anybody else has thoughts, I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I have some thoughts. It's a tough site, right? Like you said, it's a very tough site. But it's also a site that I think, is in need of development. And I think what the petitioner did was they listened to the comments, they took it to heart, they removed, one of the parcels, which is, for a developer to go back to the drawing board and remove one is, to me, a big deal. And it shows a commitment to the site. I like the green space, and no site is 100% perfect, right? But I think what they really did with this is they took everybody's concerns, our concerns, neighbors' concerns, and they did the best they could with it. And again, I think if we're going to allow development on this site, and like I said, the density is maybe hard to get around, but it is allowable right in that district. I think this is a good development plan for it. I would support it.
I would agree with Commissioner Kirch, frankly, because one of the things I think we try to do, and probably more in the design portion of this, is try to ensure that insofar as our view of Highland Park may be one thing, that these developments are not pedestrian developments, with all due respect to all the people working on it. That's part of what we do. And as I recall, former Chair Hainsfurther used to say, we try to make things better by what we do on this board. So I'm not entirely in disagreement with Commissioner Kirsch. The one thing that has always concerned me is, frankly, the access of emergency vehicles, fire in particular, back there. And I noted on page 65 of the packet, the building division had a comment that they wanted another foot on the south edge of the site because they're concerned about fire trucks turning north, just to quote what's in the packet. That is concerning from a very practical viewpoint, in that if fire can't get back there, and I know that the applicant has been working with the fire department, and I think that's the way you have to go, because we're dependent upon what the fire department tells us and tells building division and everybody else in terms of what their needs are, to make sure that these developments are not only meet the standards of the code and everything, but are safe, so that the residents who are there can rest assured that should there be an emergency, responders can get there. That's been my concern from the very beginning, actually, among other things. But
Okay, but I believe it has fire department approval, is that correct?
Excuse me. That is correct, Chair. I was on a call with the fire chief, building division staff, and the applicant team on 2 separate meetings, and they discussed, moving the balconies inwards, expanding the drive aisles as much as they could. And one change, Commissioner, that I forgot to point out, they moved the 2 southernmost guest parking spaces inwards 1 foot to kind of relieve that drive aisle.
so they did.
So there was effort made to make sure the fire trucks can move, and it does have the chief's approval as well.
And that also relates to Commissioner Nanis's questions earlier on the width of the alleyways, because the balconies, which may not affect those of us who are driving small vehicles or walking around, we're not a fire truck that is higher and requires more width, so.
Okay, any more comments on the motion that's on the table? All right, Director, please call the roll.
Do you want to restate the motion, just for clarity? You have it? Okay. Commissioner Inchek.
Aye.
Commissioner Fettner.
Aye.
Commissioner Nanis.
Aye.
Commissioner Henry.
Aye.
Commissioner Mantis.
Aye.
Vice Chair Kirsch.
Aye.
And Chair Moore.
Aye.
The ayes have it. Staff has been directed to draft findings of fact, recommending approval of this plan development. And we will be back with those. And you need to continue the public hearing for that matter, so.
Okay, do we need to choose a date?
Yep.
Certain?
I mean, either June
Okay,
3rd or June
just-
17th.
Can we keep all the back talk to a minimum, please? When you exit the room, you can go downstairs and chat, but we're trying to continue our meeting here. It's already 9 o'clock, or almost 9, and I know people want to go home and go to sleep. So, we're trying to find a date to continue the meeting to, so, Mr. Burhop, let me know.
The upcoming dates are either June 3rd or June 17th, whatever works for the applicant.
Okay, would the applicant like the 3rd or the? Okay, so June 3rd.
So moved.
Oh, we haven't had a motion to,
Move.
I'll second.
That we, well, I may as well
Continue
state
the public
it. I'll move that we continue this hearing to June 3rd at 7 o'clock in this locale.
do we have a second?
Second.
And seconded by Commissioner Fettner.
Just voice.
What was that?
Voice vote.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so this meeting is continued to the 3rd. Notice is actual, is that correct?
Notice is actual. The meeting's continued to June 3rd, 7 PM, this room, City City Hall, City Council chambers.
All right, everybody, thank you all for your comments
you.
and coming. As you proceed out, please hold your chat till you get to the base of the stairs and kind of keep it to a minimum, because
Chair, I'll just say, even when they go down to the lobby, we can still hear, so I'll recommend they take
It's a
it
nice
outside.
night. It's a nice night.
step outside for your chat. Thank you. Okey dokey.
This next one is a new public hearing.
We'll get out my paperwork while everybody filters out. Okay. So the next item is public hearing 2025-ZTA-002 for a zoning code text amendment to modify, strike, or create definitions and regulations regarding timeshare-related uses. Welcome to the regular meeting of the Highland Park Plan and Design Commissions. My name is Karen Moore. A quorum of the Plan and Design Commission being present, the members of the Plan and Design Commission will now introduce themselves for the record from my right.
Kristen Incheck.
Josh Nanis.
Danny Mantis.
Steve Kirch.
Ken Henry.
David Fettner.
The Plan and Design Commission is charged with hearing applications for rezonings, plan developments, and subdivisions under the zoning ordinance and subdivision regulations of the City of Highland Park. In all matters, we recommend to the City Council based upon the testimony presented to us in the hearing. We are required to decide cases within 45 days after receipt of the transcript. All testimony is under oath. Both applicants and others who wish to speak on a particular case should present specific evidence as to why a proposal meets or fails to meet the standards for the relief requested. For clarity of our record, only one person at a time will speak, and all questions will be directed through the chair. We ask that you make every effort not to be repetitive in your testimony. Finally, we will make every effort to adhere to the schedule prepared. For tonight's hearing, if additional time is needed on a matter, it will be continued until the next available agenda. With that, I open the floor for the staff of the Plan and Design Commission to read into the record proof of publication and ownership.
Proof of publication and ownership are available for viewing at the Offices of Community Development, 1150 Half Day Road in Highland Park.
All righty, who is presenting to us?
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, everybody. My name is Carl Burhop. I'm a senior planner with the City of Highland Park, the Community Development Department, and the Planning Division. And so this is a public hearing for a proposed text amendment to the zoning code by the city. This is zoning code text amendment to modify, strike, or create definitions and regulations regarding timeshare-related uses. So the commission should open the public hearing and take testimony, if any, and provide initial feedback about whether and to what extent the zoning code should be amended to prohibit or otherwise regulate timeshare-related uses. This was directed by the City Council on January 27th, 2025, to consider a related policy in this code amendment. And so timeshare-related uses, this is a definition put out for consideration. A property used by multiple purchasers or owners, each of whom has an exclusive right to use or own some or all of a property for a limited or specified period of time. Background and analysis. This is a very short presentation. I only have 3 slides total. This is the second. So timeshares are often, though not necessarily, associated with either vacation or some type of limited and non-overlapping shared use. Therefore, staff would state that that's similar to the short-term rentals. Short-term rentals is capitalized because that's a definition in our code and there's regulations for that. So it's similar to that in terms of land use externalities, in that it's a type of use that's transiently used by multiple individuals or groups. Often when people talk about timeshares, they often talk about vacationing. Other municipalities include timeshares within their definition for short-term rentals. Staff does intend to conduct a municipal survey and provide that at a follow-up meeting. At this meeting, again, we're asking for feedback and direction if appropriate, and of course, open the public hearing and take testimony if any. In terms of proposed amendments, these are just put forward for discussion purposes from staff. So this is the short-term rental definition. This would include the proposed definition for timeshare-related uses. I'll just read this really quickly. It was in the packet. The report, short-term rental means the accessory use of a dwelling unit for overnight accommodation that's available for rent by transient guests for a period shorter than 30 consecutive days. The term short-term rental does not include either boarding houses, hotels, timeshare-related uses, or lodging houses as defined in this section, or the rental of a dwelling unit pursuant to a rental agreement executed in conjunction with the contract to sell the dwelling unit. So that's just the current definition, with the bold and underlined being proposed addition into that definition. Then also in the staff report, it was a recommendation by staff to prohibit the land use in section 150.490, which is the land use table, then also in section 150.404. We are here to take feedback or comments, if any. Again, this staff recommendation, again, just relates to the regulations already within the code for short-term rental, and then just further clarifying that timeshare-related uses are not allowed as part of that.
Madam Chair, just one other item. So for tonight, it's just feedback, any testimony that you can receive, but we do recommend at the end of this evening's deliberations on this matter that you continue the public hearing, keep it open, continue it to a date certain. We recommend June 17th.
Okay.
There are other interested parties that have expressed that they'd like to provide some, after their review, provide some testimony on this. So I've become aware of that today.
Okay.
Whether or not they're here tonight, we did receive that request.
Okay. So in this proposed amendment, it would prohibit this use in those two land tables that you say they're at the bottom in section 150.490 and 150.404?
That's right, as proposed by staff in the staff report, timeshare-related uses, which are already prohibited because they're not listed in section 150.490. This would just clarify and add that they're prohibited as a principal and accessory use.
Okay, so and I usually let everyone else ask questions first, but my question is, if we're limiting it to 30 days, so say you've got a timeshare owned by 3 people or 3 entities, does that mean they each get to only use it for 30 days of the year and the other 9 months is just sitting around?
For as the short-term rental regulations are currently written?
Yes.
No, I'm not sure what you're saying. We're proposing introducing the use timeshare-related uses in the definition for short-term rental as being one of the things that short-term rentals are not. So categorically, they're not boarding houses, they're not hotels, they're not timeshares, they're not lodging houses. Short-term rentals cannot be those things.
Okay.
That's what we're saying. So the amendment here is merely the words timeshare-related uses.
Okay.
To an already existing definition for short-term rental in our
I
zoning.
see. Okay, so we're
Correct.
adding it to this particular definition.
Correct.
To say that it's separate from a short-term rental.
Several things. So we're adding a definition for timeshare-related uses. We're adding reference to it in short-term rental definition. And we're prohibiting it explicitly in section 150.490 and 150.404.
Okay,
But that's solely for single family, and not multifamily.
That is correct.
Okay.
oh, please, go ahead.
I am curious how short-term rentals are currently treated in the code. Are they allowed in all zoning districts, or what restrictions are put on short-term rentals?
Short-term rentals are considered an accessory use, and based on our code, you're allowed to do that in residential districts on a short-term basis, provided it's consistent with the use regulations in section 150.430.
Is there a reason that timeshare-related uses would be considered more impactful or negatively impacting the community versus short-term rentals? Because it seems like timeshares, at least you'd have like an ownership stake in the property, so there might be better treatment of the property by people who are using it sporadically or transiently. I'm just trying to think about like why prohibit the timeshare-related uses, but not short-term rental, when short-term rental seems more like it would have more negative impacts than timeshare. But I don't know if that's the case.
The short-term rental use requires that it have an owner, and the primary owner lives there. So it's an accessory use. It isn't a use that, itself as a primary use. It's an accessory use. And so it has to be your principal dwelling. So
I see.
as a
Okay.
timeshare related use, I would argue, is it a principal dwelling for, I don't know, however many people it would be? Principal dwelling, yeah, if you think about where do you get your bills, you know, where's your driver's license, you know, where you pay your taxes, what address do you use? Those are things that are primary address would mean.
Would creating this amendment then call out a separate definition for timeshare uses somewhere that we need to include?
That's right. So that would be proposed for section 150.202
Oh, I
in the
see. Okay.
definitions. So there'd be two, just in the staff report, there would be two changes to, so section 150.202 is the definition section for the zoning code. There would be two changes. There would be this new definition for timeshare related uses, and then there would be modifying the existing definition for short-term rental to include the timeshare related uses, but to include them that they are not allowed as a short-term rental.
Well, they don't.
Or under, oh, go ahead.
Right, it's specifically saying, this one is specifically saying that a timeshare related use is not a short-term rental.
Correct. Short-term,
Correct?
yes, that
Okay.
it excludes, that's correct. So does not include, it shouldn't say either, but it does not include boarding houses, hotels, timeshare related or lodging houses. So that the accessory use permissions in our zoning code for short-term rentals does not include those uses. That's what it says.
Right.
So an accessory use is a reasonable incidental use to a primary use, and we consider in our jurisdiction short-term rental of a single-family home who has a resident who's a primary residence can
Right.
do this a few days, 45
Right,
to be
per year.
specific
Yes,
per
we
year
just
as a
discussed.
reasonable accessory use to a single-family home
Right.
that has a primary resident.
Right.
Right.
Timeshare may not necessarily have a primary
Correct.
resident and has multiple.
And then would manifest itself as a short-term, how many, it could be
Right.
a number of users, yeah.
Okay, any more feedback for staff on this one?
The timeshare, as I recall, is fractional ownership is different than timeshare, correct?
I would have to defer to corp counsel. Some of this is very legal specific, so I don't necessarily know.
The way that we're using the terms, they are interchangeable.
So we wouldn't need to do the same thing for fractional,
Timeshares is the term that we're using.
for all, it's all encompassing.
Right. Okay. And so this doesn't propose to say that one can't have joint or multiple owners of a home, for instance. This is a use of a home as timeshare, right? And so that involves multiple owners. But and say there's three people that own a home, but it's one person's primary residence. It's still a single family home.
Right.
Okay, because it's not being used as a timeshare related use like that. Okay.
Was that at all helpful? Or just
There's
confusing to you?
You can have more than one owner of a home.
Yes,
That doesn't
that's
mean
true.
it's being used in any different way than a single family detached home, for instance, in terms of the actual use for a family or a household.
Commissioner Nanis.
I have like two sort of competing thoughts. So one, I know technically it's not allowed currently, but if you have, let's say, if an ADU is allowed and you're allowed to have a family member, non-family member live in that, would this prohibit that in addition? Or is that being irrelevant?
This is different. I think this is different.
That's fine.
But ADUs are, yeah, they're
That's
not
fine.
allowed.
And then
but
my
yeah.
other sort of comment and thought is, like, the way I sort of look at this is, it seems sort of discriminatory for an individual who's, for a single property, and I think we're like trying to solve for, I'm kind of leery on this because it just seems like we're just trying to look at one one property that is going about trying to do this and squash it, nip it in the bud, and I would be more open to just having some sort of tax and making them pay more money for it, and then, because it doesn't seem to be a huge of an issue, because there's no one here complaining about it, yet at least.
Well, that would be city council to have to make that decision.
Right,
That's not
but
us.
that's kind of like, I don't know, I'm just kind of on the fence on this one.
I think it's just a matter of trying to define it at this point.
Right,
Correct?
but defining and prohibiting it.
Right.
This is a text amendment for the entire city, on a particular property.
Right.
But it's coming from a particular property.
Okay, so I think, unless there's any more need to give feedback to staff, then we need to go ahead and continue this to the 17th of June.
Can I
Oh,
ask
yeah,
a question?
please,
I'm sorry,
of
my
course.
wheels are still spinning.
No, that's all right.
So,
Oh, just a minute. Okay,
so a timeshare would not be a short-term rental under what is being proposed here.
Correct.
And there's a prohibition in the code of short-term rentals beyond a certain point as an accessory use.
I would say that it is, yeah, that's correct, but I would say it in the opposite way. There's a permission in the code for short-term rentals, of which this timeshare use cannot benefit from, correct?
Fair, but so then there's the idea of long-term rentals or medium-term rentals as well, right? So would fractional ownership with medium-term uses somehow be permitted?
Not in this proposal. Timeshares are just.
I guess it sounds like we need to have some kind of, it seems like there needs to be a definition for how the timeshare would be used. I don't know. All right, any more questions from the commission? Oh,
I don't have a
Commissioner.
question, but I'm totally confused, and maybe I'm just glossing over because it's late. But to the extent that this definition or something like this might affect an organization like Airbnb from operating in Highland Park, my son-in-law is an associate general counsel of Airbnb. I just want to put that on the record, although I don't think it
I would,
has any
again, I
impact
would
on my
defer to court
ability
counsel,
to
but
look at it.
that this does not change our short-term rental regulation, except to say that timeshares are not considered short-term rentals.
I don't think it presents a conflict, but I
Okay,
just wanted to put it on the record.
Well, so I guess my thinking was, let's say you have three siblings that have shared ownership of a parent's former home, right? And they want to take turns staying there where it's not their primary residence, but they do want to be able to come in town and stay there. Like, isn't that in effect a timeshare?
Not if they're not paying.
But a timeshare would be fractional ownership, right?
Yeah, maybe.
I'm just trying to think of where the pitfalls may lie and kind of, because I'm not fully grasping all the permutations
Yeah,
of this.
I agree with you, Dan. I'm not either, frankly.
If they were continuing.
All right, I believe that we have some comments from the public, so why don't you please come up one at a time to the podium and we'll swear you in and take your testimony. Okay, do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, name, please, and spell your last name.
Fridas, Friduss. I live at 1555 Museum Drive. And I'm here with a couple of other people representing all of us who live on Museum Drive and Point Lane. And our comment is really just to give great support to the, I think it's number 15404, which prohibits the use of timeshare or fractional shares in single-family residential uses. That's something that we're facing right now, and we think that that would be something that would change the whole
idea of living in a peaceful neighborhood, and so we have no questions, we have no problem, we're just very strongly in support of that prohibition in single-family residence uses.
All right, thank you. Please come on up. All right, wait.
I have been sworn in other proceedings, but.
No, you have to do it for this one. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the
I
truth?
do. Howard Serlin, my address is 2650 Point Lane, Highland Park.
All right, you have 3 minutes.
Well, I fully support also what my colleague has said. However, I believe the term use should be considered for expansion purposes. We have been alerted to the fact that in this particular situation that we're confronting, where multiple owners might be anticipated, that those owners might in turn use the property, not necessarily for residential purposes, but for commercial purposes, to host events that would generate income, to hold parties. There was recently, in fact, a party held by the current owner of the property in question. And they brought in buses that clogged the streets, interfered with the peaceful lives that we're entitled to earn, to enjoy. And we have young children living in the area, some infants that will soon be walking, and maybe 5 or 6 other kids that have to walk to their school bus spot. And the noise that could be coming from this kind of other activity. So it just seems that the rental use is too narrow a restriction on the use that might be put to an owner of a timeshare. My point.
All right, thank you. Thank you for your comments. Anybody else? Come on up. All right, do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, name again?
And thank you, Chair Moore. Braden Lord here from the law firm of Caff, Stenius and Hollister LLP. Long time no see.
Yeah.
Our firm represents Champions Point LLC, which owns property in Highland Park. I'm speaking to request not only a continuation of the public hearing for this matter, but also specifically that the commission not instruct staff yet to draft an ordinance implementing the proposed zoning ordinance text amendment. For context, unfortunately, the staff report describing the substance of the proposed text amendment was not made available until sometime this afternoon. We don't raise that at all to fault staff at all for the timing. It simply created a conundrum for our client, the Highland Park property owner who is traveling today. As a result, our firm and our client haven't had an opportunity to fully review and prepare any comments or responses regarding the proposed text amendment. Based on our limited review, there's a possibility that the proposed amendment could substantially adversely impact our client's property in Highland Park, possibly the property of others. The reason that we request a continuation of the public hearing and that not yet a specific ordinance be drafted implementing it is for owners like our client to have an opportunity to fully review and comment and participate. So thank you.
All right, thank you. And if
Madam
you'd like
Chair,
to come up.
if I may, I did indicate that we had that request, and I did communicate that to you, as
Yes,
well
you did.
as You directing staff to draft an ordinance does not implement any change to our zoning code. You are a recommending body in this capacity, so there would be absolutely no change to the zoning code if you directed us to draft an ordinance.
Right, that has to be approved by city council.
That's correct.
So.
After your recommendation.
Correct.
So, right, okay.
My name is Paula Serlin.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Okay. Go ahead, you've got 3 minutes.
Okay, this is regard to Champions Point. I live at 2650 Point Lane, and the owner of Champions Point wants to have a timeshare where he has at least 15 to 20 weeks, if not 52 weeks, where he will not live in the home. He wants to commercialize the property. We have safety issues. We have right to live issues. We have noise issues. And he wants to change this into a different situation. It will affect at least 10 homes that surround it and other homes that are nearby. We do not feel that a timeshare belongs in the middle of a residential neighborhood where they have so many timeshares sold. And then he wants to change the zoning to make it commercial if this doesn't work. He wants to do a Graceland property where he wants to bus into a small cul-de-sac, wants to do 3 buses an hour. We met with the gentleman last night, and he wanted to do this. He didn't care about our safety. He didn't care about our right to live peacefully. He didn't care about the children in the neighborhood. It is really a commercial thing where he wants to make money. And I think by granting a timeshare for this property would change the complexion of Highland Park, because then you'll have other large houses where they will be doing this. There is not enough control. And I think you should think differently than some of these short-term rentals where somebody lives in the house and occasionally allows somebody to move in for a few days. In fact, on Maver Avenue, right nearby, we have had problems with a short-term rental. The man has changed it. He's watched, he's listened to us. We've had groups, 200 people in these large backyards. Champion Point has 8 acres. Most of the houses around us have 2 acres. And then you have music and noise and disturbances. I think that the board should really look into this very carefully. It's not a short-term rental. It is a commercialization of a property, and it's only for money.
All right, thank you so much. Okay, so I think, unless we have any more comments to give to staff, we would be looking to continue the meeting until the 17th of June.
Continue the public hearing, yes.
Yes, sorry, continue the public hearing.
That's what we would be recommending at a minimum, yes.
Madam Chair, I would move we continue public hearing number 2025 ZTA 002 for a zoning text code amendment to modify, strike, or create definitions and regulations regarding timeshare related uses. Continue that to June 17th.
Okay, can I get a second?
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Henry. Do we need a roll call vote for this?
No, voice is
Okay,
fine.
so all in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? No nays, so the motion passes. So we'll continue that to the 17th.
This item is continued June 17th, 7 PM. City Council chambers here at City Hall. Your notice is actual. There is no additional notice for this continued public hearing. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. All right, next item is moving on to other business. Do we have any administrative design review updates?
No, Chair, I did not.
Okay. Okay. Our next regular meeting is May 20th.
Oh, boy.
Of 2025, which is a special meeting at the Moraine, which is the former HP Country Club at 1201 Park Avenue, West Highland Park.
That's correct.
You assume that is for the Solo Cup Company, proper, the former,
The former 1700, yeah, all of your, yep.
yes.
Yep, that item is continued to that date, so that will be the item on the agenda for that date.
Okay, because it is a special meeting. All right, do we have any case briefings?
No, I do not.
Okay. Okay, any business from the public we didn't already cover? Alrighty,
Chair,
yes.
if I could just make a brief comment. As you all know, our biennial event is coming up this Thursday. I hope you all make it. It's generally a pretty fun time for attendees, if not the attorneys putting on the presentation.
Yes, so if you're going, I'm coming from Glenview, so I'll be taking the train from there. All right. That concludes our meeting. Can we get a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Second?
Second.
Seconded. All right, all in favor? Aye. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you.